Yo, 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 what up, everybody? What up, everybody? Welcome back. This is the one, the only, the original Patrick Davis back for another exciting episode for the Fringe podcast. I got a real exciting guest with me today. We're going to talk about some really interesting stuff. Thank you for joining us. I want to apologize for the long hiatus. I went through a lot, man. I had to get knee surgery. I mean, there's just a lot going on, but I'm glad to be back. And we got some exciting guests for this new year, 2026. I love how people, in the new year, they always have these resolutions. And I saw this video of this guy, and he wasn't talking about all the things I want to do. He's like, these are the things that I'm not going to do. And like, I don't know about you, but like, I felt that in my bones. And I thought, man, you know what? I think that's how I'm leaning into this new year. Like, there's just some things that I'm not going to do, being lazy is one of them, not going to the gym. But yeah, I think one-way friendships, one-way relationships. As a person that has a heart to serve and help people, it's easy to pour yourself out. And you don't have those reciprocal friendships sometimes. And so, yeah, there's a lot of things I'm not going to do. I'm not going to get road rage. I'm going to try not to. I don't know. There's a lot of ways I could go with that. But yeah, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome. This is the Fringe podcast. These are conversations worth having and stories worth telling. I got an amazing guest with me today. The one, the only, the original Andre Ewing. What up?
What's happening? It's Brother Dre, Curse Breakers 300.
Brother Dre, Dr. Drizzy. So yeah, we met. I'll do a quick intro how we met, and then man, I'm excited to talk to you, excited to hear your story, your heart, for you to share, some of the mission of what you do with Curse Breakers. But we actually met recently at my wife's. It was a Christmas party. She's recently gone into hospital chaplaincy, and we connected there. And you got an interesting story. Before we jump into any of that, let's talk about. Let's hop into. I want to do this in reverse. Let's talk about Curse Breakers, and then we'll kind of get into some of your story and what you've done in the past. So, Curse Breakers 3000. That's a mission that
300,
you have.
300. Yes, sir.
It's gonna be 3000 though, right?
Yeah, come on with.
Maybe that's a prophetic word for you, right? So why don't you share with us? We'll get into your story in a minute. Curse Breakers 300. What's the heart? What's the mission? You share with me, but for anybody listening, I would love for them to hear about that.
Right. The way it was birthed was obviously in Judges 7:7. With these 300, is all I need. So it's the minimum, not the mass, that God can use to get his ministry out. And of course, Curse Breakers is overcoming any type of strongholds that are invoked over your life. Because I don't care who you are, where you come from, what background, what situation. We all have a stronghold that we have to overcome.
Absolutely.
In this journey of life. And so when you put both of them together, it's the Curse Breakers and the strength of the 300. So taking that mindset and that process, people remember it from the 300 from the movie as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
And you think about, Leonidas and the strength of the 300 and just the powerful tool that he used was not his spear, but he said the power was in the shield.
Yeah,
and he said to protect the person next to you. And if you remember the little short goblin who could not lift his shield up, he said, we can't use you because our power lies in protecting the person next to you.
That's interesting.
And that's where I want to take that. We as say just human beings and people in general refuse to protect the person next to you. You all about just protecting yourself.
Definitely. Isn't that today's society? I mean, if you really step back, and there's a lot of good things about society. There's a lot of ways we progress as a society, as a world, as a culture, as people, human beings. But if you look at some of the negatives of society right now, it's very individualistic. It's very me first. I want to get my bag, my stuff. That's not a common thing in the culture to look out for each other. And what do you think happens when we as a society we're just consumed with ourselves? What do you think? What's the negative results that you've seen?
The negative results is clearly you're gonna die. You're gonna stop growing because now I don't want to feed together.
Yeah.
And that's what's interesting because the Bible said one can flight 1,000,
right,
but two 10,000. Really, the math don't even add up. You would think, okay, 1 1,000, 2 maybe 2,000, 3. No, but God said 2 can fly 10,000.
For sure.
So it shows the power in numbers and collaboration versus competition. And so this society now that look at me, social media, look at me, instead of, hey, you know, I want to embrace us. And what can we do in the vision together to spread God's word?
So good. It's so rare that you meet somebody that wants everybody to win, right? If you listen to people that are highly successful, you know, if they're entrepreneurs, on a spiritual level, you know, pastors, leaders, some of the best leaders will tell you, yo, the way I got to where I'm at, the reason why I've been given this opportunity is because I was pouring into the people around me. I didn't want to just see myself win. I wanted to see the people around me win. And as a result, what do they want to do? They want to see me win.
That's right.
And I think that goes against everything, you know, in our flesh, our selfish nature, our ego, right? Especially as men, it's like, no, I want to do my thing. But yeah, man, you got an interesting story. We'll dig more into the curse breakers in a minute. But I love that origin story, the judges. I think oftentimes when we think about God doing big stuff, we automatically assume it takes a lot of people, which is not true. I mean, you look at the disciples, there was 12 of them. And what did they say in the book of Acts? Are these the men that have turned the world upside down? It wasn't 500 people. It was 12 dudes. In fact, they were speaking about 2 people, you know, at the moment. And so, yeah, I think that's powerful. And if you're listening to this, man, you feel insignificant and you feel like God can't use you and do something epic in your life, bro, don't drink the Kool-Aid, man. It's not true. It's not true. And so, you know, you shared with me at the dinner, at the Christmas dinner when we met, how you were a police officer for 30 years. I shared a little bit of my story, how I've been on both sides of the law, you know?
Yeah.
And God redeems. Man,
that's right.
And I never hated the police, you know? I'm going to keep it real. There were certain cops in Cleveland, bro. Exactly. Hey, I'm telling you, they were criminals, man. They would strong arm rob us. They would they would kill some people and kick them over this hill. I mean, I could tell you stories upon stories. Wow. But there were also some amazing dudes, and I don't know if I shared this with you that night, but man, one of the most impactful people in my life when I was in the streets, it was a police officer. This guy would pick me up. He would arrest me. Let me correct that. He would arrest me, rightfully so. But before he'd take me down to JDC, he would drive me around and be like, man, you seem like a smart kid. What are you doing with your life? Like, you seem like you have so much more potential. And I wasn't listening at the time, but when I finally woke up, I'm like, yo, that really meant something to me, you know? Here was a guy who had every right, I deserved it, to prosecute me. I probably deserved to be smacked around a couple times, you know? And he still saw value and worth in me, man. And so, you know, there's a lot we could get into with Cincinnati Police Department. You know, the culture of Cincinnati, very different from up north. But let's start with this. You know, what led you into law enforcement? You know, that's a very unique career to go into. It's an honorable career. Shout out to all the cops out there serving, protecting, that honor the badge that took the position for the right reason. We need you. We appreciate you. And yeah, God is using you, and we appreciate you. But, you know, what led you into law enforcement, and what was the appeal? And why don't you talk about that journey a little bit? Yeah,
the journey is deep, because usually you hear, oh, I want to help people. But let's go to the true essence. I got pulled over when I was in my early 20s.
Okay.
Tinted windows. You know, back then, of course, you got the rims with the Ford Escort.
Hold on, what kind of rims did you have, bro?
You know, it was actually the what I call the fake plastic rims, but it still had, you know, I think back then 18s was still booming. You know what I'm saying? We didn't even really get to the 20s yet.
Nice.
And so here it is. I'm cruising. I remember it like it was yesterday on Madison Road.
Okay.
Minding my business. And going through the lights, green lights for that matter. Next thing you know, I get pulled over. As soon as I get pulled over, one thing that I respect and love is my dad.
Yeah.
Always told me, no matter what the situation, how you dress, how you look, what comes out of your mouth matters.
100%.
And so even when the police approached, he said, you ran the red light. I said, I disagree, officer, but here's my information.
Yeah.
Wrote me up a citation. And I knew that just the way the entire process went, that he was basically saying, hey, I said you ran the red light, you ran the red light. Right. And most, you know, let's just be honest, people, whether you're white, black, or Hispanic and different, when you go to court, you really don't understand the court system.
100%.
So I had a few of my bros that actually were state troopers.
Okay.
And I said, man, I got pulled over this type of way. And he said, man, let's walk through this entire citation. He said, let me tell you what to expect, how to expect when you go to court. Exactly. Wow. So I went to court, beat the entire case. And what was interesting, when I showed up to court, I had on a suit and tie. I was on point. When he pulled me over, I was coming from the gym, hoodie game, bandana, the whole 9 yards. So even when I got to court, Patrick, the officer looked, because they say, was that person in the room right now, sitting at the defense table? He said yes, but he didn't look like that. I think that's him. So I knew I was going to win the case from that point.
The moment he said that,
So I knew he profiled me. There was a discrimination,
for sure,
and he never had really somebody come to court to question what he has done. So I said, you know what, this is going to empower me to go ahead and make sure that things are fair across the board, and I want to be that brother for individuals.
That's good. Love it.
That when officers show up, they can either make things better or absolutely worse.
100%. I love that story, and I'll tell you why I love that story, because I've always been the kind of person, after I went through my stuff and I got my mind right and I came to God, I've always been the kind of person, and I would say even in the streets in some way before I knew the Lord, like I've always been the kind of person that I don't want to complain about the problem. I want to do something about it, right? And I think for a lot of people, not that everyone's called to be a police officer, but I love your heart, and I love that, your response wasn't, oh, I had this negative experience, and so forget that. No, bro, I'm gonna be part of the solution, right? Mahatma Gandhi, the famous quote, be the change you wish to see in the world, man. And I think there's something powerful about that when we can take personal responsibility. Not that you did anything, but personal responsibility for the world. That I can play a part in turning this around. So I love that. It's powerful. It's powerful. Yeah. So you go through academy. What was that like?
The academy was always different. Since I had already pledged the fraternity, shout out to the bros, Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. But I already was used to people being in my face, the military style growing up with my dad. So the instant respect was already there. And I knew they were going to try to push you,
for sure,
because they wanted to see you break and possibly leave the academy. But so I thought the academy was very inspiring, educational, because it was just things that you needed to learn. How does the thinking process come from the police side, and what people think they're what I call accusations of what's not really truth.
Definitely.
And so it was a great learning experience on both sides.
For sure. Yeah, and I'm sure you see people in that class as you're going through that, like, that dude ain't gonna make it.
Correct.
Mentally he ain't there, emotionally he's not there, physically he's not there. I was watching this thing about firefighters and stuff that they go through, like it's important that they have that, and you get the right people in there. And so you eventually you get hired on. Did you start with Cincinnati, or were you somewhere else?
I did start with Cincinnati in 1996.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Interesting. What month in 96?
Started in January of 96.
Interesting. So I got arrested in December of 96.
Wow. Okay.
So you were doing the complete opposite at the same time. I got arrested December 5th. That's funny, man. So yeah, you go into, what was it? What you expected as you go in there? Obviously you're in an entirely new occupation. That's a very unique job, and was it what you expected as you got out on the street, as you started patrolling, as you interacted? Because, you go from being a civilian to being somebody that's on the other side of that. Not that it's bad, but what was that experience like? And, how was that adjusting to that?
It was interesting because, like I always said, I'm glad I'm the police officer that was coming to the scene. And so you still had a field training officer. And it was, the saying back in the day was don't hate the player, hate the game.
Right.
So if you're doing a crime, I can still arrest you and not disrespect you.
For sure.
And I know people think like, man, how does that happen? But I can still leave your manhood, even say womanhood, and leave you with respect to the point that people have said, man, even though you put these cuffs on me, and I may have called you every nigga in the book.
Right.
Can I say that? Yeah. And I called you every nigga in the book. You still respected me, and man, my bad. They always come back with my bad because I was totally professional. Because once the cuffs go on, I don't need to give you an extra kick, extra punch, extra elbow, and even put an extra charge on you. This is what's happening, and we're gonna start there. So it was really just the process. Now you're gonna have people talk about you, but what was interesting was the internal issues that you had
amongst
from white
officers.
Cops and black cops.
Okay. So talk about some of that. We ain't gotta name names or any of that. Whatever you want to share, you can share. So what was your first experience with that? Like what happened? And so obviously, as you talked about, growing up was your father in the military?
He was in the Army.
You grew up in the military environment. You were in the fraternity, so you understood brotherhood, right? And so I'm sure in your mind you're thinking, yo, I passed the academy, now I've been hired on. This is a brotherhood, right?
Correct.
And so what was the first moment or the first conversation or interaction where you're like, yo, like we're really not all of us with each other?
Well, I want to give a shout out to Lieutenant M. Aaron Taylor, who was my mentor. And what was interesting is that starting out, even when I was on probation, as everyone sees, I wear a beard.
Yeah.
Now, wearing a beard back in '96 was absolutely, you're the enemy. Really? So other white cops would look at you
because of a beard.
Because of a beard, like here it is. You trying to change the narrative.
They were mad because they couldn't grow one.
And so it was crazy because with Lieutenant Taylor and Sergeant McCrae, they started where it's in the military, pseudo folliculitis barbae, dealing with the shaving waiver of constantly shaving, and dealing with black skin.
Right.
And so what had occurred, I was able to get an exemption that was started wearing my beard. And that's where I became a target because people are afraid of change.
Isn't that sad?
Absolutely.
Of all things you could be mad over, like a beard, bro.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's wild.
It's wild too, Brother Patrick, because now everybody white, black, doesn't matter, is wearing a beard.
For sure.
And that should tell you that even with the discrimination that I felt, even with the backlash, even from some black officers for that matter, because you're being different. Here it is, the change that you see today, because you held on and stayed strong for what you believe in.
For sure. I love that. It's like the Nazarite vow, Right. No, that's good, man. I love it. So, let me ask you this, and there's so much we could talk about from a police point of view, patrolling the streets. As a police officer, I always talk about this when I speak about correction officers as well, wardens, people that work in the prison system. You can see the best and the worst of humanity on the same day. So, why don't you? What's a story? What's a moment where what was one of the darkest things that you experienced during that time, saw, witnessed, and then what was another moment that you were like, yo, I thought this was gonna go sideways, but like this was actually a beautiful experience, And there's so many ways that cops come through and they save kids in horrible living situations. So many good things that happen that you guys do. So what are a couple of moments that stick out to you? Maybe this was a dark experience, and I didn't think that this would end up being a good situation, and I stepped into this. And
well, what comes to mind is always a homicide scene.
Of course. Okay,
you see in the street someone just been assassinated, killed. Right there in the middle of the streets, brains blown out.
Yeah.
Family member comes up or what have you, and you're on the scene, and clearly the person is deceased. And so people around are saying, of course, help him. And you have this procedure where you still call the fire department. The fire department comes out.
Right.
And back then they just pretty much, this person's dead. Leave the body in the street.
Wow.
And usually just there for the whole public to see the
because
traumatized.
It's a crime scene,
correct.
So there's a reason. But
but I never agreed with that reason.
Yeah.
Because now it's a process of traumatized situations. You see this all the time, and now it's a process of lack of care for the community that you're in.
Yeah.
And that, well, this can be the norm. So those situations always bother me.
For sure.
Now they don't leave usually the body in the street.
Yeah. So
that most
changed.
departments,
Okay.
no matter what, they get there and they
Okay.
take the body because of the trauma.
Yeah.
The crowd control. I
sure.
don't want to look at my loved ones
Right.
just because is there a chance
Right.
that they could possibly live? But if you do absolutely nothing,
Yeah.
and then you sitting back eating cheeseburgers and
Right.
chilling,
The insensitivity.
correct,
Yeah.
correct.
And I think at some, we can talk about this with chaplaincy eventually, but I think at some point you have to learn how to detach yourself from the situation to do your job. Not that you're cold and you're some, calculated, cold individual, but to be able to process the situation, to, talk to people, to crowd control. But how did you, seeing stuff like that, over and over and over, how do you not become jaded? How do you hold on to your humanity? How do you continue to sleep at night, even though you weren't the cause of that situation? The human psyche, right? The spirit that we all have. That's not normal to see that stuff. We're not, what were some of the practices? How about that? Yeah, let's do that.
Definitely. The practices was prayer.
Yeah.
The faith of consistency and making sure that I stayed in my word. And that what would God want me to do as I continue forward, and don't take the work home.
Yeah.
And this is why you have a lot of police officers who are mentally and psychologically torn, and they have a high suicide rate.
Right. Yeah.
Because they don't know how to detox. They are alcoholics, drug addicts, and they take their own pain and put it on to people.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible combination. So faith was key to make sure I still had that involvement with family,
For sure.
still take time out to do some self-care.
Yeah.
And to make sure that I was mentally on point. And if I needed to take an extra day off, I would do so. Stay in the gym.
Yeah.
You have to, what you eat plays a strong part. And people don't really understand that there are foods that will cause the high blood pressure.
Absolutely.
That will cause the extra stress.
For sure.
And so now you got a stressed out cop that's been eating sugar
Not
all
eating
day.
well. Yeah.
Trying to take care of you. So those were things that I implemented that were very strong, of concentrating what I call on a faith, having the right circle of friends, dealing with family, and also food.
Definitely. I think too, like, I'm sure part of that practice was you got to remind yourself that the world is not all bad. You know what I'm saying? Because you're experiencing not that every interaction that an officer has with the public is a negative one. Sometimes you're helping somebody, their car broke down or what. It's not always these extreme examples, but you experience extreme examples on a regular basis. And so I'm sure part of that is like, not everybody dies prematurely. Like some people, I'm going to go to this. I can have a good time tonight. This is going to be a good day. Not all days are going to be days that are, and I think we've seen that, especially with the young people today with social media and the advent of technology, is we are force-fed, like fire-hosed, all the world news, the world events, the conversations of 7 billion people in our pocket, and if you're not careful and all you do is watch, I don't care what your news source is, CNN, Fox, NPR, homie, it don't matter. Like if all you hear is bad news and all you hear is tragedy and trauma, eventually you start becoming a person who's suspicious of the world. You think everybody's out to get you. You think tomorrow's going to be a repeat of today, and you have no hope for a future. And without vision, my people perish.
Come on.
And so I think it's very important, and I've gone through this with my own experience doing work in the prisons. I mean, you hear some of the craziest stories you ever hear, and you realize that it's not all black or white, and everything isn't. It's not always bad news. There's good news and good things. And for me, one of my practices has been, let me meditate on some of the good things happening around me, as much as because I don't want to be the dude with my head in the sand either.
Right.
There's some crazy stuff happening that I'm not going to avoid. I want to acknowledge, and it needs to be talked about. But also, like, I'm in the car with my wife and my kid right now, and it's beautiful out today.
Right.
My daughters, they're playing on the playground, and she's having a great time.
Correct.
I think that's important. So, if you're that person right now, you're listening, you're suspicious, you think everybody's out to get you, you just feel negativity just weighing your soul down. Maybe you need to have a positive source of information, man. And for us, faith is huge. There's so much good that God offers you and I. And so I just encourage you, if you feel yourself weighed down by the weight of the world and what's happening in society, don't bury your head in the sand, but there's good happening too.
Absolutely.
And so, what maybe give me another example of what were some of your favorite moments, as a police officer, this experience that really was a beautiful.
Oh, absolutely. I can give you two that come straight to mind. Here it is. I do a traffic stop on a young gentleman and his family. Okay. He clearly ran a red light, pulled him over. And when I approached the vehicle, the young man is tatted from, his top of his head to the sole of his foot.
Yeah.
And he has his family in the car, wife and his 2 kids in the back. And as I approached, I always say, sir, I pulled you over because you ran a red light. Yeah. So I don't play around with people. Why I pulled you over today. Right. So he says, yes, sir, I did.
Yeah.
And I said, well, just let me allow me to check your driver's license and proof of insurance. Yeah. And, please stay buckled up for me. So he gives me his information. I go back running. Terrible driving history.
Because there's a difference between high-end tattoo shop ink and prison ink. Did he have the prison ink?
He had the prison ink.
So you already knew, he might have been to the joint.
Right.
Might be a stretch, but
right. Didn't want to judge the brother, but he had the serious ink, and so I looked at his record, and it was terrible. But one thing, he had proof of insurance. Yeah. And he also had a valid driver's license.
So he was on the right path.
He was on the right path. Yeah. And when I say terrible driving record, I'm talking about when they say 40, been convicted 40 times, 40 times arrested, 40 times convicted on traffic violations. Yeah. So I was even surprised he had a driver's license.
Can't give it back.
But when I sat back, and this is where the spiritual side has to still be in law enforcement, that you can tell that this person has never had a break. Yeah. That to get 40 citations, it was a lot of injustice and a lot of prejudice that implemented that process. Because I don't believe he just had a bad driving record. That I'm sure there were some cases where he was innocent. Yeah. So,
but you got that scarlet letter following you around.
Exactly. Yeah. So I reapproached. I had a warning. And I said, sir, I appreciate, your respect. Mm-hmm. And I said, I'm just going to give you a warning today. His wife looked up and said, shocked. Oh my God. And he said, he looked and he just shook his head. He said, man, you the first cop that ever let me go on a warning. Wow. I said, brother, be blessed and empowered. God bless you and enjoy your family. And I knew that was going to be impactful for him for the rest of his life. But it was elevating, because the Lord is like, quit kicking somebody while they're down. Yes. He's trying to do better. He's with his family.
100%.
And these are the things that I try to educate police officers on, to make the proper judgment in that moment, that everything doesn't have to be, let me just cite this person with everything I have. Because usually when cops end up having altercations or get killed, it's usually, if you always hear it, oh, that cop was great. Yeah. Because it was the cop that was a knucklehead that actually triggered the offender to say, the next cop that pulled me over, it's a wrap. Yeah. So that was powerful. And just to add to that, first responders as police, we go into the scenes when there's DOAs, dead on arrival, and sometimes people's homes, our loved one is dead. Police have to show up, for sure. And you see the insensitivity that most officers sometimes have. Mm-hmm. Hey, how you doing? Yeah, my loved one's in the back. They see it, and they're cold and callous. Yeah. And so I respond, and the family's frustrated because this officer is like, they don't care, and the body language is saying, I don't care.
100%.
So I walk in and I diffuse the situation. Tell them that, of course, sorry for your loss. And here's the process of what's going to happen
Wow, that's good.
So they know going in,
helpful.
this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And this is the procedure. And I'll be here every step of the way for any questions that you may need.
It's beautiful.
And so those moments then become where
it's a de-escalation.
Absolutely. And a better trust process that you do understand where they are.
So good. Well, you hear about the saying, the straw that broke the camel's back. And, the guy you mentioned getting pulled over, he could have really been trying. He's trying to do the right thing. And maybe he has $2 in his bank account. And if he would have got cited, he literally, now he can't get, not saying you should be violating the law and running red lights and obviously all that. But I think that's where spiritual discernment and wisdom comes in.
Correct.
You speak of the situation of the person and their loved one being dead. My family, my brother was murdered. And I'll never forget. Thankfully, and I'll get to the thankfully in a minute. I was in prison when it happened.
Wow.
But when it happened, now I'll be straight up with you. I had a horrible reputation. I was a criminal. I was a thug. I was a gangster. Whatever label you want to put on it. I was known by the police, rightfully so, for evil criminal stuff that I was doing. If they saw me on the street, they should have stopped me. So this is no like, you got the wrong guy. I was that dude, straight up. Now, my brother who was murdered was the opposite. His name was Larry. Wow. He was a star athlete. He was being scouted by Major League Baseball teams right out of high school. Cincinnati Reds, the Kansas City Royals, the Cleveland Indians. And he had never been arrested. He had never been in trouble. Like, he was the opposite of me, bro. Like, the opposite. He was always trying to talk me out of the street stuff and selling drugs. Wow. And so he goes to the Flats in Cleveland. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like an entertainment district. And was hanging out with some friends. And this guy, they were in this club together. This dude is all wasted, picks a fight with him. And, we grew up in the project, so you learn how to defend yourself. If somebody gets in my space and I feel threatened, I'm going to fire off on you,
Right.
And so he started firing back on the guy, and they're scrapping. My brother gets the upper hand, and the guy pulls out a knife, stabs him 8 times. He bleeds to death. Now, nobody jumping, none of that stuff. But like, you swung on me, like I'm gonna fight back, And again, my brother had no police record, and so this guy kills my brother, stabs my best friend. Shout out to Joe. He was 16 at the time. He's blind and paralyzed to this day.
Wow.
He got stabbed in the heart. He was, he was in a coma for like 6 months, and just horrific tragedy. Now, my younger brother, who's 2 years younger than me, my brother who passed was the oldest that was living with us. We got the oldest one is in Colorado. So the brother that's younger than me, he was very emotionally fragile. He was devastated, bro, devastated at my brother being killed. And the police officer, one of the police officers that came to the house, they pulled him over, right? They profiled my brother. Okay. Probably because he was my brother. I mean, let's be honest. But my younger brother wasn't that dude either. He wasn't, he was a stupid inner city kid, but he wasn't doing any of the crazy stuff I was doing. So the cop pulls him over, and this cop was notorious for doing evil, dark stuff, robbing people. I mean, horrible stuff. And he pulls my brother over. They profile him and his friends, smacks him with a flashlight, slams his head on the hood. And then he tells my brother, like 2 weeks after my other brother got killed, I know who your brother was. He was a criminal and a thug, and he deserved to die.
Wow.
And so, now mind you, God honest truth, my brother had no police record. My younger brother was not some criminal. And so here you have, and there were other examples of wonderful police coming over, checking on my mom, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. But thank God for people like you, man, and that really can make a difference. And I think, bro, if that was me, that's why I say thank God I was in prison when that happened, because if you would have said that to me, like, I'm going to find you, and either I'm going away forever or you're going to be gone, bro. Right. Because I wasn't there. And I think, the topic often comes up, de-escalation with police, right? How do you, and there are some situations where, hey man, if somebody's coming at you, your life is in imminent danger, somebody pulls a weapon on you. But why don't you talk about the importance of having, and I think a lot of this, and I think the reason why some of them struggle with this is it's spiritual. The ability to have the spiritual insight to see how to navigate an intensely volatile situation. I think it's spiritual.
Right.
And so why don't you talk about like and this isn't just cops. Like we need to learn how to do this as human beings, bro.
Correct.
In my marriage, you know what I mean?
Right.
Am I pouring gas on the argument I'm having with my wife, with my
Correct.
kids? And why don't you talk about, what's some of the most powerful stuff you've learned about de-escalation in general, and how has that made a situation that was intense, it calmed it down, or how, maybe you saw somebody that wasn't de-escalating, that just, this situation could have just been resolved, but now we're dealing with a whole entirely different situation.
Correct. I've always said you can't de-escalate what you don't understand. And so what's interesting is if you're hiring, let's just say, white officers who only hang around white officers,
Facts.
that only know about white officers, and white community. So when they actually, their first interactions with black people are negative.
Right.
The videos that they were showing in the academy was all black people doing the criminal activities.
Have you ever heard about the search, when you search black teens on Google? You ever hear about this?
Nah, which one is that?
They exposed it, and it's different now, but there was a time where you could, if you search white teens on Google, or you search black teens, the black teens was always mug shots, the white teens, they're wearing quarter zips or whatever, you know what I mean? Clearly biased, And so, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, because that's the truth with the, if you remember the CPR testings, and they did the test with the babies, there were always white babies. So you would never feel as if you should save a black child.
Wow.
And so this has been imprinted in our police officers, in their training, in their motives. So when they try to de-escalate, that's why you see actually videos that maybe they see someone that's white and they're constantly put the gun down. Please stop.
Right.
Please stop.
No,
please stop.
It's true.
And if the black person has the gun, they gonna get popped quickly. Now I know some of the listening audience may say, well, there's more whites that have been killed by police officers too. Okay, I hear what you're saying, but if you do the percentage, it's going to be a higher rate, of blacks that actually being killed quickly without de-escalation. So that's why I say you can't de-escalate what you don't understand.
So
that's why the police academies need to make sure what has been your involvement in black communities. If is there a stigma if you do see the white t-shirt and jeans hanging, cornrows, do you automatically think, man, I better grab, hold on to my gun tight, versus the individual that may have the suit on? You are going to get treated differently. That's why I said, can I treat you the same? Whether you wearing the 3-piece suit with gaiters on, or if you just actually you smell like alcohol and you got dirty jeans on. And so that's why the mindset has to be equal. And I always say you have to be cautious, expect the unexpected.
Yeah, you won't survive.
Or you be in big trouble. So
that's such a good point. It almost makes me wonder, like, would it be helpful in the police academy that regardless of who they were, Caucasian, African American, Hispanic, like if this is the community that you're going to be patrolling, like I almost think you should be required to do a certain amount of community service in that community.
Come on.
So you're familiar with, and this is, I'll tell you, and I've talked to Ebony and Josiah about this and my other African-American friends down here since I moved to Cincinnati. One thing I noticed about the move from Cleveland to Cincinnati is the cultural and racial tension, bro. It is so different. Like, and look, I'm not saying there aren't racist people up in Cleveland,
right.
And I'm not saying there's people down here that are not racist, but it is so different, bro. Like I had somebody tell me, I was in the prisons, shout out to the homies in Lebanon Correctional. I did a faith-based music therapy program in there. Okay. And I had a young African American say to me one time after a session, I've been in there for 3 or 4 years doing programming, and this guy comes up to me and he's like, man, I've never met somebody white like you.
See, right.
And I was like,
right.
Like, I didn't know how to take it. And I'm not an overly sensitive person. I don't care, But he was complimenting me. And I got what he was saying, and and I appreciated it, but I'm like, bro, that makes me sad. I said, first of all, I was joking around with him. I'm like, bro, you need to get out more, Right. But the reality wasn't, and so we started talking about his story, his background. His brother was killed by the police, a white officer, and he's from Cincinnati, over the Rhine area, and his only interaction with Caucasian people was negative.
Right.
And I like, even if you look at and I'm not saying there's not some up in Cleveland, there is, but this, even just the racial segregations in neighborhoods here is wild to me, bro. Like we all grew up together. We lived in the projects together. We hung out together. Sure, there were issues that some people had, but overall, man, like we came up together, you know. But here, even in Hamilton, like there's an African-American community over towards Front Street, and like it's this little bubble that they all live in.
Right.
And like all the events that they have downtown, you know, if it's the Pumpkin Festival or like you don't see them people. And I understand there's so many reasons why. And the more I'm here, I get it. But that's always been part of my passion. Part of the reason why I believe God's brought me down here is to be part of the solution. Back to what we were talking about.
Correct.
How can we bridge that gap? And so, you know, I think it's amazing what you've done as an officer. Hats off, man. Salute. That's God's work. And I think any way we can enter each other's worlds and we understand, like, man, there is, like, there's so much more we all have in common. Right. And there's so many more ways we can grow and learn from each other than we can living in these compartmentalized. Because I know what I was gonna say. That officer, when you were talking about, you know, some of the guys, they would go in these communities that they've never been in. And so automatically they go in there and they're suspicious. They're nervous. Oh, you know, everybody's out to get me. I don't feel that way when I go into the projects because I've been to the projects. Right. You know, I lived in that environment. I went to school. If you saw my school picture, like it's a melting pot of people. And there's a guy, his name is Rick Steves. He does the travel thing on NPR. Okay. I mean, what a job. Can you imagine your job is literally go to the most beautiful places in the world, eat the best food and make a you know, DVD about it. Rick Steves said something powerful one time on the radio that really blew my mind. He was talking about racism and injustice and fear and suspicion of people who are different from you. And he said, you know, fear and fear of anybody who's different. Fear is for people that don't get out much. Right. And I think that's really the solution is how do we enter each other's worlds? How do we get out of these bubbles? How do we, you know, I think that takes time, but you know, I think you've done that, but stuff, it has to be talked about. So, you know, I'm talking to him about his brother, the kid in prison. His brother was killed by the police, and how, you know, he's hated police. He was straight up. He's like, you know, I don't like white people, and I'm like, bro, you can. This is a safe place. You can hate me. Let's talk about it. You know, let's navigate this thing. And so we start talking, and I'm like, you know, let me tell you what happened with my brother. And so the guy who killed my brother, he was very connected. His family connected politically. They knew judges. They knew lawyers. Right. They spent close to $1 million on a lawyer. Wow. We were from the projects. We were from the inner city. We didn't have money. My mother didn't even have money to hire a lawyer. We had a public defender, even though there were witnesses that saw everything that happened. He gets acquitted scot-free. Right. They hand him back the knife he killed my brother with in court in front of my mother. Oh, it gets better. And then eventually, as he's acquitted, I find out later he became a police officer. Wow. And so I'm like, yo, I don't understand the racial situation you got going on with your brother. Right. But I do understand some of this injustice and some of this profiling and until you've experienced anything even remotely, you don't have a clue. You know, and you see people, they get pulled over, they get stopped, they get harassed just because of where they're from. Like, bro, I was born here. Like, none of us can control where we were born. And it I'll tell you, some of the most wonderful people I've ever met are people that were extremely poor, that were in horrible situations, whether it's in Appalachia or in the inner city projects in Cleveland. And this illusion that somehow, because you're not inside that concrete jungle, that you're superior because of the color of your skin, your socioeconomic status, it's ridiculous. Right. You know, and I think, like, how do we call it out? How do we, it's the whole thing. How do you make a change and not throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? And I think we saw a lot of this stuff happen, you know, with George Floyd. I mean, there was a kid up in Cleveland. I mean, it could go on and on and on of wrongful deaths, people that were executed, quite honestly. And then, there was a whole movement to demonize all police. We need to defund the police. And everybody's got an opinion. And it always amazes me, the people that have opinions, that have, one, never been a police officer, or two, they've never experienced police brutality, right?
Correct.
And not that all cops are do that and abuse their power. But I think part of the solution is we gotta break bread together, man. We gotta sit down together. And so, what are your thoughts on that? Like, how do we as a society, how do we break that down? What's the responsibility for people on both sides of that thing to just, like, especially as Christians, bro, like, in the gospel, it talks about there's neither slave nor free, Greek nor Greek nor Jew, Jew or Gentile, and like how we're all one in Christ. And like, as a Christian, this is the shocking part to me, like some of the stupid stuff that I would see come out of the mouths of people that were professing Christians during that time. I'm like, yo, bro, you cannot be, this is not a political issue. Like, this is there's things that are evil and things that are not evil. There's things that are right and there's things that are wrong. And so, what is, as someone who's lived a life, bro, you were the police officer, you're an African-American guy, you've seen, you've experienced, you've witnessed stuff both inside the parameters of law enforcement and I'm sure outside. We can talk about how, a lot of people that are Caucasian that didn't grow up anywhere near the city, they don't even know that most black families have the talk with their kids as they're growing up. How do you interact with the police? Most white parents, they don't do that. Right. And so for you, as you think about, like, okay, I'm the type of guy, I want to be part of the solution. What are your thoughts on that? And what can I do? What can people do listening? And how do we break bread? How do we sit down? How do we just overcome this stuff, man?
Right.
Which is a generational conversation, right?
Correct.
It ain't gonna
that's like a generational curses that continue to go on because most African Americans who have had bad experiences with the police are pretty much, F the police and don't have no involvement with them. Yeah. But, white families are taught, hey, respect the police. Yeah. So it does start with even the parents and they're consistent. Let's just say if you had a bad experience, and even if you're white or what have you, if you've had a bad experience, 9 times out of 10, you're going to teach your kids to F the police 100%. And go about it this particular way. But what you're actually doing is an entire disservice to the process of just let me get through this particular situation and then educate you on, well, I can at least go to my attorney after the fact, because a dead man can't talk. Right. And if you're trying to have the entire jury in the moment, usually you're not going to win. But have there been shootings that I've seen clearly that, okay, this person is complying and they still get shot. Yeah. And that is what's going on with that officer psychologically, that he or she is so afraid that they completely basically just blank out and just start shooting. And that's a thought that you already have moving forward. And this is why if we don't have those conversations, because I implemented something called CALM, where I was doing a demonstration for if you get pulled over, this is how you respond. And some local, say, leaders in the black community were talking against it, like, nah, we're not going to have a conversation. And I said, if you're not going to sit down with a retired black officer that's giving you key information on what to do, and you're saying, we don't want to talk to you at all, but soon as another, say, African-American young child or young adult is killed, you want to have an argument, but you don't want to have the conversation.
Which is what society is right now.
That's exactly it. And that separation, you divide and you can conquer. Right. And so we have to learn how to sit down and work together more and more. There needs to be more visuals on what exactly does blood brothers look like. Do I have to look like you to be your blood brother? Right. When Christ died for all of us. For sure. It's so good, man. So good. It's powerful. It's powerful. Yeah, man, there's so much density here. Let's talk about, so you and there's so much we can get into there. Right. I mean, we could talk about this topic for decades and decades. I would encourage you, if you're listening to this, man, just one of the best things you could do is get out of your bubble, man. Go
go try some different food, bro. Go hang out in a different neighborhood. Go hang out with somebody who's different from you, that looks different from you. Listen to, I'm a fan. One of my favorite things to do is different experiences. The more random, the better. Like, if I've never tried Thai food, I want to try Thai food. If I've never gone to this community, I want to go into this community. And I think that's back to the media. I think the media's role, there's an agenda with a lot of the media that, and especially politicians, they want to keep us divided.
Right.
And they want to keep us at odds with each other. And it's very easy to do behind the screen, but it's very hard to do when you're sharing a meal.
Correct.
And I think there's a reason why Jesus broke bread with people all the time. It was a sacred, beautiful thing. When he called the Samaritan woman, that he changed his route to reach that woman. They weren't even supposed to, as Jews, weren't even supposed to walk through Samaria.
Right.
And Jesus changed his route. So don't think you can't change your opinion, homie. Right. So I think that's what we need. We need to change our route. Right. And, look at that woman's story. It's beautiful, man. And so, you do 30 years as a police officer, miraculously, as an act of God, you're not jaded by humanity, which I think is a testament to your genuine walk with the Lord. You've done work in the prisons. And so, you haven't been this police officer that lock them up, throw them away the key. There's no hope for these guys.
Right.
What kind of led you into prison ministry? What were some of your favorite experiences in that? And then we'll kind of segue and close out with kind of what you're doing now for school.
And I'm glad you asked that question, because there had to be more than just dropping them off at the Justice Center and leaving.
Yeah.
And I would usually have great conversations from point A to point B.
On the ride.
On the ride down, but there needed to be more just from leaving. And they always would say, man, can I call you when I get out? And I would have a card and say, man, reach out to me. Most of the young black males had no father.
Right.
There was no man in the home. Period.
For sure.
And that led to a lot of the incarceration and frustration.
Yep.
And so I said there needs to be more. So if this audience is already in a certain position, then I want to try to get in deeper. And so that started me to get into reentry and go with a reentry program and start off with prison ministry that started off with Ethan Temple Church up in Dayton.
Nice. Which prisons were you going into at the time? DCI?
Correct. I was going actually to Chillicothe, Piqua, Ross, the Hamilton County Justice Center.
Okay.
So it was interesting, just that whole journey.
Well, I'm sure those guys, like, they're shocked to know. Were you still active police at the time?
I was.
Yeah, they had to have been shocked. Like, yo, this cop, he cares enough to come in here. Like, yeah, that might have been a dude that arrested me, or he represents the people that put me in here. I think, man, what a powerful story.
Hey, but let me go ahead and blow your mind with this. When I got into prison ministry, I was going through a rough divorce at the time.
Okay.
And one of the elders in the church, the church actually banned me from participating in any church activities due to going through this divorce.
Wow.
And so one of the elders said, look, I've seen what God is doing over your life. He said, do you want to do prison ministry? And the first thing I said is, yes, but as a cop. And I said, but what do I need to do? And he said, well, we'll bring you in. I'd love for you to speak. And I said, I'll do whatever it takes. But I was such in a, let's just say, miserable state going through the divorce. Sure. I didn't care what the situation was. Yeah. So here it is. I go into the prison, and not just me ministering to them, they ministered to me. And so
that part, talk about that.
Yeah. What's deep is that when you see individuals that are incarcerated but they are free in their spirit and their love for Jesus, takes things to an entirely different level. I wish everybody in church ministry would visit and do prison ministry, not where you're in a controlled situation, but you're doing actual fellowship in the journey. And so here it is. They don't know I'm a police officer. I'm going through visiting for at least 3 months.
Sure.
Forgot I was the police. I'm having so much fellowship. And I did a series on forgiveness. And here it is. I'm standing in the chapel at Chillicothe Prison. Not one person even asked me during that time, what do you do for a living?
Interesting.
And here it is. I sat there and I said, look, none of you have asked what's my profession.
Interesting.
I said, I'm about to tell you at the end of this message for the forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I said, I know that you have been violated.
Wow.
I know have you been assaulted.
Wow.
You've have given extra charges on you by the police. And of course, they shouting during this time. You've been manipulated, embarrassed in front of your families. They're like, yeah. And I said, but I stand here before you asking you for forgiveness and to forgive in your heart as a Cincinnati police officer.
Wow.
Pin drop.
Oh, man. Bro, I wish I could have been there to see that.
Pin drop. And you didn't hear nothing. And then all of a sudden, the brother stood up. He said, man, there's no way that you can be the police because you've washed our feet.
Right.
You've sat with us.
Isn't that Jesus?
Like you're sitting in, you were in the grip with us. You broke bread with us. And he said, man, I needed to hear this. You are here because I'm getting released soon. And my first project I was going to do was assassinate a police officer.
Wow.
And he said, but because you have come here and you are behind what you call enemy lines, I see the love of Jesus in you, and I was judging the uniform and not the person, and I'm ready to consistently move my life to Christ. And it was a movement
I bet
that went across that prison, that there's a police officer here doing ministry. And so I set out to start to heal these individuals in prison that had this hatred,
of course,
that would meet me for the first time and actually have trauma and panic, but through the process of Jesus Christ and love, they said, man, this is on another level.
It's powerful, bro.
And so, like I told you, man, God moved in such a powerful way that even just talking about it doesn't even skim the surface of how powerful it was to where the staff and the wardens at Chillicothe and other prisons became so afraid, and they were afraid for what they didn't understand.
Right. Well, they're not spiritual.
And see, they're
not spiritual. And so what they see, oh, this dude's about to get murked in here. That's probably what they're thinking.
No, they started to say this brother becoming too strong,
or you're turning against them.
Correct.
Because let's talk about this. Because there are unfortunately correction officers and people that work, not all of them. And again, I can speak to several correction officers I'm still friends with to this day that held me in prison.
Right.
Because you got people in there that are doing that, they probably felt some type of way. Oh, he's in here saying this and saying that, and they're not spiritual, right? And so, gosh, what a powerful story, man. It's beautiful, beautiful. So what ended up happening after that?
Well, what ended up happening was Curse Breakers 300 was developed.
Okay.
To empower, let's break these generational strongholds.
So was that the
life.
origin, like that experience?
That experience started to it birthed Curse Breakers 300, and because I did a message called "Searching for the 300." Wow. Because individuals in prison understand cliques, gangs, and groups. And so I said, let me introduce you to the strongest gang in the Bible, which was the 300.
Come on.
And so, and I said there was even what I call a pledging process to eliminate suckers that were not strong enough to understand. And when you really give a display that, these individuals, God had to rule out and say, hey, look, I want you to lap it up like dogs.
Yeah,
and
it wasn't
with
for
them,
the faint of heart. Yeah,
I need those. And they embraced it. To where now the supervision, and when I say supervision, the correction officers actually love to see me come.
Yeah, I bet.
Because it made their job easier.
For sure.
Inmates
their behavior changes. I had the warden tell me that our program at Lebanon, which at the time was the most violent prison, it was where they sent all the gangbangers, all the people causing problems at other prisons, they sent them there. Say, yo, whatever you're doing, like, it's reducing violence in the prison. Can you go? They asked me, can you go down to SEG? Solitary.
Right. And
they never let nobody down there. I said, yeah, of course, let's go. But that's it. They see, and that's not us. You're not clever. I'm not clever. Correct. There's something much larger than both of us happening. And God loves those people, man. That reminds me of a story. One of my cellmates, shout out to Jabaki Granderson, my homeboy, in Columbus. He was locked up with me for a murder, and a great guy had given his life to the Lord, turned his life around, eventually got released. And before he got released, the mother of his victim came to visit him in prison. She was a Christian, and she wanted to forgive him. She didn't know he had already had this conversion experience. And so, they now travel around and tour around, and they share their story. And his life verse during that time in his life was, when a man's ways are pleasing to the Lord, he makes even his enemies be at peace with him.
Correct.
And so when you have a situation like a police officer coming into enemy ground, right, you're supposed to be enemies,
Correct.
but God's pleased with the situation. Now suddenly, and dude, if there's anything the devil don't want to see, it's that type of stuff. Because you get them people together, bro, it's unstoppable.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's 3,000%, you know, because what was interesting is that now you have the upper echelon showing up to some of the, what I call, meetings that we're having. The Curse Breakers 300, the list was full for the entire year for classes. And so I'm getting assistant wardens and the high echelon coming in watching the program. And what was told that when they banned it was that my interaction was so powerful with the inmates. I am seeing individuals from my hood I went to high school with, and we're shaking hands, we're gripping each other, and they said, look, well, he's violating the Nexus report. You know, he knows too many people, and
treating him like a human being.
So they canceled it completely, and it was a blow. I mean, it really was hard and deep because it worked, and plus I challenged the prisons on, healthcare. Like, what's going on with the healthcare, the mental wellness to help these brothers? Why does somebody who served, say, 35 years, he need to serve another 10 when you're supposed to be the Ohio Corrections of Rehabilitation? Come on. If you rehabilitate, what does that really look like to you? And you need 35, and plus I'm gonna give you 10 more.
For sure.
So questioning that in my position as a police officer and having some tools to maybe move things, they said, get him out of here. And that's sad for, because we know prison is big business.
For sure. Well, and I've always said that too, as a murder victim. Like, bro, if that guy who did that, now this is as a Christian, I understand people that don't know the Lord haven't experienced forgiveness, let go of the resentments and the hatred. I get it. I understand that, and you're justified in a fleshly, worldly sense of having that grudge. But as someone who's came to the Lord and He's forgiven me, so I got to forgive other people. I've forgiven that person. I've always said, if he would have acknowledged what he did was wrong, if he'd have did a 10-piece and really meant it and turned his life around, I would have been okay with that.
Right.
But I've seen, I've done prison work now for probably 25 years, all the prisons in the state of Ohio, from OSP down to juvenile correctional facilities. And I said the same thing, how and I say this as somebody, again, that one, I've been incarcerated, so I've been in those environments. Two, I've done prison reentry and prison ministry for over 20 years, and someone who's been in prisons in other countries. And I see how they do corrections in Australia. I saw how they do corrections in the United Kingdom. I saw how they do corrections in other places. And there is a rehabilitative process. People would often ask me all the time, especially when I was in those really intense prisons like Lucasville, OSP, Ross, Chillicothe, Lebanon. Oh man, how many of those people do you think are beyond hope? And I would tell them, my answer is going to shock you. Probably 2%. Now, let me keep it 100.
Yes, sir.
All those people are not ready for change right now.
Correct.
They have not reached that point.
Correct.
But I've seen people that did 35 years, 40 years, 20 years, juvenile delinquents you thought for sure would be, they're going to be career criminals. I've seen people change and never, ever go back.
Correct.
And become the most kind, gentle, loving human beings. But they have to have the support. Somebody's got to give them a job when they come home.
Come on.
And that's why we had the coffee shop and did what we did with reentry. We started these businesses that would only employ felons because these people are coming home. They're trying to do the right thing.
Thank you.
Nobody wants to give them a job. And so they have their kid crying because there's no formula or whatever, people don't treat them like human beings. And so there's not a lot of churches that really embrace these people. So let's just start a church where people can walk in if they're, if they're hungover from yesterday, if they drank this morning, if they just got out of prison, their face is tatted, we're not going to play those religious games. And as people started to have that sense of community and they had a job, even if it wasn't the best job in the world, man, they thrived.
Correct.
Wow, somebody will rent to me, even though I have a felony. Suddenly, they're getting their kids back. They build a business. They end up buying their own home, and wow, you got your life back.
Right.
Well, how did that happen? Somebody gave me a job. Somebody treated me like a human being. Somebody showed me some love. There was a church that welcomed me in and didn't put me in the back and wasn't ashamed and embarrassed of me being in the building. And I think, what you did with that moment, was that, you said that was in Ross or Chillicothe?
That was in Chillicothe.
What you did with that moment was Christ, the Word becoming flesh, bro.
Correct.
Wait, you're supposed to be a police officer? Mm-hmm. How could you washed our... Bro, that's Jesus.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And I think, and I always push this to my pastor friends, people in ministry, people that are involved in church, people that say they're followers of Christ. Like, you better realize Matthew 24:25, that if you don't embrace these people, you don't love these people, you don't visit them, you don't feed the hungry, you don't clothe the naked,
Correct.
You don't visit those that are in prison.
Correct.
I tell people, and this is true, you are missing out on a part of God you will never experience in any other environment.
Absolutely.
It doesn't mean, and I say this as a pastor, it doesn't mean that the sermon doesn't matter, the worship leader doesn't matter, that you shouldn't assemble with the brethren in community in a church building. But bro, like, there's a part of God, Jesus even says in that text, like, when you've done it to the least of these, you've done it to me. He doesn't say it was like you did it to me.
Right.
So what that means to me as I read that is there's a manifestation, there's something I can get from them. I'm not just there for them. They're going to give me something. There's a part of God in them that if I have the eyes to see and the ears to hear it, I'm going to experience God in prison. And I can tell you story after story. I'm going to experience God with that homeless dude, with that prisoner, with that woman that's in prostitution. I'm going to experience the Lord in that environment in a way that I won't any other place.
Correct.
And man, what an amazing God.
Absolutely.
That he makes his home with people like us.
Exactly.
From the highest in humanity to those that are in the alley right now, bro. And that's a compelling Jesus. That's a Jesus that people want to know about.
Absolutely.
All that other stupid stuff, all that other religiosity. Come on, man. I wish I would have been there for that moment. That's powerful.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And just from that, let's just say experience, I was able to also, at the time, Chillicothe was housing death row individuals, and I was able to go on death row.
Wow.
And that was an experience in itself, because the game has changed, because you got individuals who are not getting out, and they are on death row. And here it is now, you are in the midst of individuals who have come in shackled from head to toe, but get unshackled for the Bible study. And they know that this individual sitting with them is the police. I'm already going to death row. I might as well kill you too, homie.
For sure.
And choke you out, shank you, do whatever, because by the time the guards get there, you're not gonna make it. So to be able to see God's power, they even said either you're crazy
straight up,
or God is real.
No, that's it.
And they took the latter.
I love it.
To where on death row, a brother said, hey, look, he said, it's our love for Christ that contains us from killing you. And he said, before we didn't have the love of Christ. And he said, that's why I choked and strangled my girlfriend, because she was, cheated on me. For sure. He said, that's why we shot, certain individuals. He said, but it's the love of Christ. He said, so you go and you tell the people at your church and in the world, come on, man, they are the ones on death row.
Come on.
Tell them they on death row, because we know our dates. Brother said, I know my date. And so I am not playing with the process. He said, they out there don't have a clue, and they're playing with their life. He says, so they're walking on death row right now. So that hatred, that confusion, the murders, the biases, tell them to go ahead and get rid of it because they're on death row. And if they die with that in their heart, they're internally lost.
For sure. Wow, it's so good. I heard somebody talking a while back, you know, who was the first person that benefited from Jesus's death? Who was the first person to enter in? Think about it.
Who was the first person? The thief on the cross.
Thief on the cross.
Yeah.
It wasn't the Pharisee. It wasn't the Sadducee. It wasn't the rabbi. It wasn't the priest. It was the thief. Mm-hmm. And the moment we lose the plot, not that God values them more than somebody that's never committed a crime, right? Obviously. Right. But gosh, yeah, that's the heart of the gospel, man. I think this is so powerful. Yeah, we're on death row. One of my favorite preachers, shout out to Philip Anthony Mitchell, homie down in Atlanta. You know, he often tells people there's an urgency with which he preaches. We're running out of time, man. We're running out of time. And this illusion, you know, that because I'm not locked up and I don't have an execution date, I could go out here and get in this car, God forbid.
Correct.
And that's the end. So anybody listening, anybody watching this podcast, you, me, homie, we are running out of time. Make sure your life is right with the Lord. Make sure your heart is right. You can hear today you'll be with me in paradise, so you can be separated for all of eternity, man. Jesus has paid the ultimate price for you and I to experience life, not only life after we die, but life here and now. And so, you know, you make this transition, you move out of, you know, bro, we could do like 10 episodes.
Oh,
man.
yeah. No doubt.
You got to come back, but let's
make it happen.
Let's say this is part one. This is part one.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at the clock. We're at an hour 10, but it's all good. So you eventually retire from the Cincinnati Police Department. You instead of just sitting back and doing nothing, you decide to go into hospital chaplaincy. So what, you know, that's a big shift. It's not a big shift as far as ministry and caring for people, but what was that transition? What led you to that, and how has that been? You said September?
Yes, sir. End of September to the beginning of October started, and so I'm a server. I believe in service. And there's really so many similarities between policing and chaplaincy. There's the process that if you're a peace officer and you're implementing peace and you're going into situations that can be volatile, but also how is your demeanor, how is your stance? And you talked about de-escalation. Just on my humble approach, could actually de-escalate a situation. You know, the Bible says a soft answer turns away wrath. And so body language plays an important piece. So just being out of policing and retiring just to here in July, I still wanted to serve.
So you went right in. Wow.
I went right in, you know, with the mindset to serve and continue that journey. And it's interesting because just in a incident that occurred, and not to give too much information, there was an individual being held by the police at their residence. And me as a chaplain understood the procedure and what was going on. And I asked the loved one, may I speak to him? Yeah. And being able to speak to him, I never had to mention that I was a police officer, but I said that, but he trusted me as a chaplain to say, this is what they're about to do in this investigation, and just stand by because we need you here at the hospital, but allow them to do what is necessary, and I'll walk you through their steps. And that's exactly what took place. So the Lord is definitely using this in a mighty, mighty way to repair the breach of this journey.
I love that. You say, you know, you've always had a heart to serve. As believers, as followers of Jesus, we never retire from serving, do we?
Never.
Whether it's your occupation, you're getting a paycheck for it or not, you know, Jesus said that the greatest in my kingdom will be the one that serves, right? And I think that's a beautiful reminder. And shout out to anybody listening. Doesn't matter what your age is. If you're 12 years old, you're 15, you're in college, you're in your mid 30s, you're 80 years old, man. You are never called to retire from serving. And he who wants to be the greatest among you should become what? Your servant. That's it. I think that's powerful. There's so many stories Sarah tells me with chaplaincy, and you know, she has obviously a different background, but she was a nurse, and so she's able to, again, in a very unique way, understand that side of it.
Correct.
And help to calm some people down. And so, man, I think if I get sick or I get hurt, I'd love to end up where you guys are.
Right.
And so, you know, we'll do a whole episode. That'd be a dope idea. Actually, we get a couple chaplains, man.
That's right.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll do a whole nother episode on hospital chaplaincy. Shout out to all the hospital chaplains out there doing the work of the Lord, sitting with people while they're sick, while they're suffering. It's a beautiful thing. And so, if you could share anything with the world as we close, as we wrap up again, this is part one. We got to do a couple more. You know, Chainbreakers 300. Your heart, you know, where you're going in the future, what's some of your plans, and if you could share anything with the audience, what would that be?
Absolutely. One of my major plans is to take chaplaincy into the police department the right way. When I say the right way, we do have chaplains within the police department, but they don't truly understand the police.
Right.
And so police is a hard shell to crack.
For sure.
And so because of that, officers will not open up in a dynamic way. So I would love to be back with, you know, some of my former police officers, but to guide them through the journey and spirituality to say, look, I did 30 years and by the grace of God, you know, I have my health. Right. Just went through an entire health check from head to toe, heart check, lung check, everything that was necessary. And so to be able to be in full health as you retire, huge. Full mental wellness as you retire is the key in itself. So those are things I'm going to be working on, as well as this outreach with Curse Breakers 300. For sure. You know, getting with you, Brother Patrick, in the street, and we make it a live broadcast and find out why our youth are absent in our inner streets that don't want to know the Lord.
Definitely. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. If you heard that knock on the door, that was not the cops. We are not being raided by the feds. We have our podcast inside of a local school. So shout out to everybody again. There's so much we talked about. Absolutely. I'm sure you have comments. There's thoughts you have. Maybe you want to challenge, question anything we said. This is we were all over the place today. Drop us a comment, leave some comments below. We'll both hit you up. But thank you for listening. Thank you for being with us. Hey, my brother, my sister, as you listen to this, you are called to serve the world. You're called to serve the least of these. And don't be the kind of person that you just like to complain about the problem, man.
That's right.
Let's do something about it. Until next time, my brothers and sisters, grace and peace. We will see you soon. Peace out.
Peace.